Hi everyone, Temporal here, and today we are looking at an article about kill switches. We have a new law that is going to, within 5 years, require that all newly sold cars, trucks, SUVs, all that good stuff has a kill switch that can be operated remotely. So let's get into that. And we've originally got this from Yahoo News, but Yahoo News is an aggregator, so we will go through to the original story here on Motorists. And we'll get into a couple of the key bits here. So the first thing we want to see is the piece of information itself. According to an article written by former U.S. Representative Bob Barr, hidden away in the recently passed infrastructure bill is a measure to install vehicle kill switches into every new car, truck, and SUV sold in this country. The regulation likely wouldn't be enforced for 5 years, so maybe there's time to do something about this. Probably not. Probably not time to do anything about it because there's not going to be a specific lobby interest group that wants to do something about it unless consumers really, really fight back hard against this one, which maybe we're going to do. Maybe we're going to say absolutely not. Maybe there's just going to be a, hey, no one will buy new cars, and that will send the message through, and then the automotive industry will lobby to get it changed. Who knows? But that's what we're looking at. So in the infrastructure bill, it looks like one of those things that got snuck in there, and one of those bills that are way too long for anyone to read, or perhaps not stuck in there, was there's going to be kill switches. And let's get a little bit more detail about, why we might be concerned about that. So for those that aren't aware, we're talking about a remote kill switch where you can press a button and effectively turn off the engine or take away the driver's ability to control the car, not let that engine start back up, that sort of thing. So that's what we're talking about, which, the police might love to have, but maybe that's not the best idea. Let's read a bit more here. As we've seen, both in this country and other countries recently, what constitutes law-abiding can change drastically overnight. For example, in September, a car was pulled over in New Zealand and the occupants arrested when police discovered the truck was full of Kentucky Fried Chicken meals. They were smuggling fast food to customers in locked down Auckland against quarantine measures. Okay, so that's, a somewhat extreme example, of, they could potentially have their car locked down, they could have the kill switch pressed because they're smuggling Kentucky Fried Chicken. But the point that it's making is a reasonable one of sometimes, a society has buy-in, people agree with the laws, and then, oh no, it's fine, and then, everything's fine, and then they don't agree with the laws because the laws or how they're interpreted changes very, very quickly. Or if we were to look at the tens of thousands of laws across our country that are on the books but are generally not enforced, but some of which could still be enforced, selectively against, that's not supposed to happen but can happen. There's concerns with anytime you give government or any entity too much power to go, hey, we could do this thing. So it's not really your car that you're buying. It's still apparently the manufacturer's car that they get to keep a kill switch for that they would then maybe give out to the government. I find it very unlikely that they wouldn't. It's probably, in fact, mandated by the bill that it is. And don't get me wrong, there are benefits to this. Let's not pretend that being able to end high-speed chases before they go near a school zone, near school children, that is a good thing, don't get me wrong, but that does come with some serious drawbacks, and we want to be aware of those. Let's move on here. Okay, so according to the bill, it must passively monitor the performance of the driver of a motor vehicle to accurately identify whether that driver may be impaired. So that means that not only can it do that, it has to do that. It's required by the bill to actively monitor the driving of the driver, which, hey, maybe that won't be an issue once everyone's using cars that drive themselves and the driver is just sort of sitting there not driving it. But the law that's going into effect here is it has to monitor the driver. That's not great because there's basically no way that doesn't get turned over to other companies. It's either, hey, the government is building a file on you, which, that kind of feels like surveillance that we had a Fourth Amendment right against. I know Fourth Amendment is so out of style these days. Or that puts us in a situation where, and almost certainly that puts us in a situation where that data is being monetized and sold. There's no way that doesn't get monetized. And the low-hanging fruit, of course, is that gets sold to your insurance agency, and then your rates go up because Ford or Tesla or whoever has sold that information to all the insurance agencies, so they all know how you drive, and your insurance goes up as a result of that, or maybe down, whatever the case may be, which people aren't particularly gonna like. But even beyond that, I would expect it would sell more than that. Like, oh, you're not impaired, but you've been impaired before. Maybe it's time to hit you up with a advertisement to sell you a drug, or to sell you a prescription, or to do this. Like, that stuff is going to get monetized in ways that we mostly can't even imagine, much like our online profiles already do get heavily monetized by the Googles, the Facebooks of the world, in terms of the information that we give out there when we're browsing the internet is very profitable and very much collected and sold, and this would almost certainly get added to that. Oh, this is how you drive. Maybe people don't care about that, maybe they do. I don't think it's particularly great. And not only are we saying they can with this law, we're requiring that they do it, which is just not my favorite thing. The other thing it runs you into is if it's doing this passive monitoring, that's potentially maybe going to activate the kill switch itself, right? It decides that you're impaired, so when you come to a stop, it just goes ahead and kills the engine. That's not going to be great, because you could be in situations where, A, you weren't impaired and it was just a false positive, which isn't good, because maybe now you're stuck at a red light, stuck at a stop sign, can't get the car going, and it decided you were impaired, so it decided it's not going to let you start the engine again for 30 minutes, 2 hours, whatever the case may be. And it might do that when you're trying to get away from a flood, a tornado, something really, really bad. That's an all too possible solution, and really, or all too possible scenario, and really not a good idea. Okay, let's take this. Okay, so the kill switch safety system would be open, or in other words, there would be a backdoor. That would allow police or other government authorities to access it whenever. Would they need a warrant to do it? Likely not. I don't know about that. Whether they would need a warrant to do it or not, still very much up in the air. Even if this doesn't in any way get repealed, and I have no big hopes that it will. But hey, hopefully, even if it doesn't get repealed, goes through exactly how it is, it's very possible that the courts would still interpret this in a way of yes, they do, at least until something bad enough happened and it was their only way to get them, and then they might go, okay, fine. That's traditionally how the courts have ended up caving, unfortunately. But I don't know about this part. This is opinion of the writer anyways. What's more interesting is it would have a backdoor, and anything that has a backdoor means, hey, if you have an adequately skilled hacker, they can potentially shut you down. And if it's not hard, and I mean hard-coded, to go, no, this thing will never shut down while the vehicle is moving, then you're potentially in a situation where, hey, you can potentially, with just a computer, cause crazy amounts of damage. And, targeted crazy amounts of damage as well. So that's not really good. Now, obviously, you can already do tons of infrastructure damage with a computer. That's a vulnerability. The country is aware of it and working on it. But, let's add another one with cars. There's almost no way to keep that safe. The amount of work and cost that it would have to go into keeping that safe, if you're going to keep a backdoor, you can't do it, but even if you do, it just makes the cars even more expensive. And we're sort of into this territory of cars aren't really cars anymore, they're computers, and this is just more on top of that. That doesn't really look particularly good. So those are really the main points I wanted to bring up here. In case people weren't aware of it, this is what we're looking at. Cars are mandated, newly sold cars, SUVs, and trucks within the next 5 years are required to start having remote kill switches. So that's the wonderful news that I thought I'd share today. Obviously, I'm not in love with that. Let me know what you guys think in the comments down below, and I look forward to seeing you next time. Thanks. Temporal out.